Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey, right here on the Dice Tower. Today we're going to be taking a look at this little fella right here. This is War of 1812 Solitaire, the travel game. Yes, you heard it right. I am reviewing a solo game. There are no other player counts that this works with, only Uno. Let's get down to the table and take a look, shall we? On your turn, you're simply going to follow this sequence of play. What you'll do first is you'll roll the die to determine how many actions you'll get during the course of the American turn. And so you roll a die. If you get a 1 to 2, you get 1 resource point. 3 to 4, you get 2. And 5 to 6, you get 3. The things that you can do on the American turn is you can either attack on an adjacent British front marker, so you can take this guy and attack this guy, or you can attack a British ship marker if it is British control in one of the 3 lakes. Or you can add 1 regular to a front, which is simply taking one of these tokens and adding it underneath the front token, just like that. Or you can attack the Northwestern Warrior marker using the Warrior chart, which is right down here. Now, in order to attack, you simply roll the die, and you're basically trying to get a 3 to a 6. But if you're attacking a fort, like this right here, there's always going to be a -1 dice roll modifier. Now, it doesn't matter if it's a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, that's just marking what space you're on. But if it's a fort, which is this pentagonal shape here around the circle, then that's going to be a fort, and it gives you a -1 dice roll modifier. Now, what that means is that a 4 through a 6 to get a fort, but these regular ones that are just circles, you need to get a 3 or a 6 to advance that marker. Once you've spent all of your resource points on the American turn, then you're going to roll a die and consult the British chart over here for the actions. And it has 2 different outcomes for each side of the die, whether it's an odd turn or an even turn, and you just simply follow the directions that are under that thing. So, just course of a turn here, I'll give you a basic idea. So we're going to roll a die to see how many resource points we get. So I rolled a 4, we get 2 resource points. So what can I do on my turn? Well, let's go ahead and attack Niagara right up here. We're going to attack Fort George from Fort Niagara, and so we have to roll a die. But first, what we're going to do is I want to be able to use my regulars, and possibly I might possibly need a die roll. So I'm going to call my regulars in to assist in the attack, and now I'm going to roll. So it's a fort, which means I have to roll a 4, 5, or a 6 in order to win. So I roll, and I roll the 5. All right, super duper. Don't have to use my regulars to re-roll. So now the British front will go 1 back towards Fort Erie because I've pushed them forward, and that's that. So because I rolled a 4, I only got 2 resource points. First resource point was adding a regular to the front, and then my second resource point was to attack on that front, and we won. So that's the end of the Americans' turn. Now we're going to roll to see what the British do. So we come over here and we rolled a 4. So we come to the 4. It is an odd numbered turn. So, but this one says all turns, British regulars flip over 2 British front markers to regulars, player's choice if not flipped already. All right, well that's kind of sucky, because what that does is, for example, we'll flip that one over here. This gives an additional -1 dice roll modifier. So that means that this fort here is going to be a -2 to whatever my die roll is whenever I attack. We'll do that one. And since we've got regulars over here, we're going to go ahead and flip that one over as well. So that is that. Now, once the British action has done, we flip over to action turn 2, and now we go through the same exact sequence. How to win is actually quite simple. So you have an instant British victory if British markers occupy 2 American starting towns simultaneously after turn 4. So after we get to turn 4, if there are 2 of these spots that are occupied by British fronts, that's an immediate British victory. We have lost. So beyond the instant British victory, there is going to be simply victory points for what you have accomplished. If you have taken over Montreal, then it's 6 victory points. If you've taken over York, and it's an additional 3 victory points, and you'll add 1 victory point for every town that you have reached, not counting York and Montreal. Then you'll also get 1 point for every lake you control by flipping over into American control, and you'll get -2 if the Northwest Warriors are in play, and you'll also get -2 for every lake that is British controlled at the end of the game. And you'll basically take those victory points and consult this table right here. So if you got 10 or less, the British win. Canada will remain with Great Britain. If you go to 11 to 16, then it's a draw, the historical result. Canada will eventually become an independent nation from Great Britain. And if you get 17 or more, American win, and the Americans ensure their independence. If the score is 21 or more, some Canadian territories will become American states. And then optionally, if the Americans occupy Montreal and York at the end of any round, then that is considered an immediate American victory. Now, a couple of things of note: whenever you do use your regulars as a reroll, they will come off the board, and you'll have to take a resource point on a future turn to put them back somewhere else. And there is a limit of 1 per front. You can't stack a whole bunch of regulars on one front and then roll through. So there are 4, which means that there's 1 for each of the 4 fronts that are in the game. But generally, that's it. Let's get to my final thoughts. Frankly, they've laid everything out there for you. You read the rule book just to get the basic idea of how it's played, and then they basically replicate all of that on the 2 player aids that come on the board. So after your first play, except for the scores, you really don't even need that anymore. You've got everything you need to know and understand how to play that's actually on the board. And that's one of the things that I actually really liked about it. I am a history game aficionado. Now, maybe that's an overstatement. I really like historical games. Now, I don't like all of them. The heavier ones are a little bit too tedious, and I usually steer clear of those. But something like this is relatively right down my alley. I'm usually not one to play solo games, but I have found of late that it's a good way to keep myself gaming because I have fewer people with which I can game during the course of a day. I do enjoy solo gaming at this point, but it's still not my preferred method of gaming, if that makes any sense. But this one was interesting because I liked the historical aspect of it, and it was also interesting because I am enjoying solo mode games much more than I used to in the past. So let's get to my pros and cons. My first pro of the game is the fact of how compact this game is. You know, there are a lot of solo games out there that really kind of have a very big footprint, and this one is almost the antithesis of that. Nowadays, solo games are really kind of getting too big for their britches, as far as if I can use that phrase, because they take up a very large amount of table space. This one doesn't do that, and I loved it. My second pro is going to be the simplicity of the turns. You roll the die, figure out how many resource points you're going to get, you spend those resources points. What do you get to spend the resource points on? Attacking, reinforcing, attacking. That's it. I like that. It's simple. It takes your decision space and makes it very narrow so that you know what you're doing. Part of that is determined by, of course, the subject matter. It's a war. You're just carrying out. You're kind of simulating the war, and I get that. But the simplicity of it. Many other historical games have gone to great lengths to make this very convoluted, and this doesn't do that. Now, I know it's a travel game. It's not supposed to be convoluted. It's a solitaire game. It's not supposed to be hard. I get it. But this, while it isn't hard, I would still say it's challenging. And that brings us to my third pro. This is not just simple, it is also challenging because while you have very few decisions to make, you need to be on the ball. Otherwise, the British player is just going to steamroll you, and they will very easily do that unless you're trying to keep up pace with them. If I can say it this way, trying to anticipate what's going to happen next. Now, it's hard to do that because it's just based on a die roll. And, you know, unless you're keeping track of all the die rolls and working out all those statistics, it's really hard to kind of guesstimate what's going to happen next. But that's kind of the vein in which you need to play this game, and I really did enjoy it. It made it challenging. You don't just beat the game. You can do well, and I would imagine if you have a run of getting a whole lot of turns where you have 3 resource points, it might even seem easy. But those dice rolls will turn on you quick, fast, and in a hurry. The different ways that the game could end is another thing that I thought was an interesting point worthy of being one of my pros. I like that there is an instant American victory. I like that that instant American victory is optional. You don't have to use that. Now, the likelihood of that happening, I guess, is there. Otherwise, they wouldn't put it in the rule book. But because of all of the different things that you're able to do that happen to you rather on the British actions, seems like that would be a difficult thing to do. So I'm glad it's there, but I don't think it's going to happen very often. Secondarily, in this same vein, seems like most of the time you're going to land on that historical outcome because you will be able to get a number of towns taken over, and you might even be able to get up to York. I think when the times that I played it, I think I got 1 away from York and a couple away from Montreal. But even then, there are some times on those British actions where you don't want to be too close to those places because it basically ignites them a little bit and makes things harder for you. I think the different victory point conditions are all pretty well done. My last pro of the game is going to be the fact that there are ways for you to mitigate your die rolls. And again, there is only one way, and that is to use your regulars in an efficient way. One of the things that I found is that using a resource point to get regulars into each of the different fronts is one of the things that you really kind of need to do to have a good chance at winning, because you've got to be able to mitigate those dice rolls, and I'm glad that the game put that in there. If you're just going straight on die rolls, man, especially with those -1, -2 dice roll modifiers that some of the forts can give you, and then when those British regulars show up, those extra dice roll modifiers, you really need to be able to re-roll your die in order to have a chance at winning. So I really do like the fact that that was added in there. I only have one con for the game, and it is simply this. It's based completely off of rolling a die, and that can be tedious. That can feel like it's super brutal, especially if you keep rolling bad. Just realize that that's there. If you go into it with that realization, knowing that you're just going to be rolling a die to determine how many resource points you get, and you're going to be rolling a die to see what the British do against you on that turn. If you realize that that's how the game is, it won't feel as brutal. You'll just go into it accepting that you're going to have sometimes a run of bad rolls, sometimes you have a run of good rolls. That's just the way it goes. But I know that for some people, it's not very fun because it's all left up to chance, and they want a little bit more strategy, a little bit more tactics than that. But I don't think that this game is devoid of those things because it uses dice rolls for combat resolution and seeing what kind of things happen to you. But it fits and it works. So all in all, as a not so avid solo gamer, I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. Yes, I enjoy historical games, And that's one of the things that really appealed to me the best out of this, is the fact that it was a historically based game and it wasn't difficult to teach myself how to play, and it was very, very simple. I really enjoyed all of that. So it does get a 7 out of 10 for me. Now, how does it stand up to other games? Like, well, it probably doesn't hold a candle to something like Final Girl, but that is a different kind of complete genre, in my opinion. You're simulating something completely different, and it's a lot more convoluted. So this one, I think, works for what it was supposed to do, and that's why I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. Thanks for joining me. We certainly appreciate it. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.